Before we get into the grid, let's get one thing straight. I absolutely love Star Wars. I grew up on Star Wars. Revenge of the Sith was my first Star Wars movie in the cinema. I watched all of Clone Wars. I watched Rebels. I went to Star Wars Celebration. I mean, I love this shit. But I just finished Andor season 2 and my god, it has ruined me. I don't think I can go back to regular TV. Andor has completely changed what I expect from this franchise moving forward. Star Wars has historically been about epic lightsaber fights, which are awesome, and destiny, but Andor's different. Andor is about the cost of living under the boot. Unlike other Star Wars shows that do tend to rely on glub shitto cameos, Andor relies on political intrigue, consequence, and tension. Season 1 was a masterpiece of tension, and Season 2 somehow was even better. Today I want to talk about why Andor is the only standalone Star Wars show that understood the assignment. Season 1, The Anatomy of a Spark. Season 1 was a masterclass in slow burn world building. It didn't rush to the action, it let us feel the weight of the Empire's boot. Season 1 is the perfect example of a 3-episode arc structure. It gives the story room to breathe and gives us 12 episodes instead of 8 unlike other seasons, which is exactly where other Star Wars shows have gone down. Disney has very often tried to cram all of our adventurous storytelling into 30-minute weekly episodes. Think about the Aldhani heist in the first season. The tension didn't come from epic lightsaber duels. It came from the sheer terror of a few people trying to pull off the impossible against a bureaucratic machine. The Aldhani heist isn't just a great action sequence, it's a masterclass in character building. We spent 3 episodes just living with these rebels. We realized that the rebellion isn't a monolith, it's a messy collection of different types of people. You have Nemik, the young, pure idealist. He's the heart of the group, writing his manifesto about the random nature of freedom. To Cassian, who is cynical and just trying to survive, Nemik's optimism feels foreign, almost naive. Nemik is Cassian's polar opposite. One is fueled by a belief in a better future, the other is fueled by an exhaustion of the past. Then you have Vel, the leader who's clearly been in this for a long time. She's coordinated, cold, and carries the heavy burden of command. She's almost a reflection of the role that Cassian inevitably will take on himself, slowly becoming the leader he's meant to be. Then there's Skeen. Skeen is the brutal reality check. When he tries to double-cross Cassian and really the entire group at the end, it's a reminder that not everyone in this noble cause is a hero. Some are just survivors looking for their own way out. Watching Cassian make the choice to kill Skeen is a huge turning point. It shows us that Cassian is starting to understand the cruel reality of being in a rebellion. If you believe in a cause and want to save the cause, sometimes you have to be willing to do the dirty work. We then move on to undeniably the best arc in the first season, the Narkina prison arc. This is arguably some of the best television produced in recent years. It turned the concept of imperial efficiency into psychological horror. That chant, "One Way Out," became an anthem because the stakes were so grounded. You weren't rooting for a superhero, you were rooting for men who'd been stripped of their names to find their humanity again. I remember attending Star Wars Celebration at this time, and the main cosplay we saw was people dressed up in these prison outfits. I mean, some people even went as far as chaining themselves to each other, and everywhere you went, you heard the chant, "One Way Out." I think at one point we were in a panel and we could hear them outside chanting. It shows you just the massive impact this show has had on a huge Star Wars franchise. If you think about how massive this franchise is and how small in comparison one show would be, the impact this has had is insane. The season eventually culminates in Maarva's funeral and the uprising on Ferrex. Her speech and the subsequent uprising, it was the first time we saw how dirty a rebellion needs to get. And for the first time, the rebellion felt like a dirty but beautiful, difficult necessity. The season ends with Cassian realizing he can't run anymore and joining the cause. Now that's a brief synopsis in a way of what happens in season 1. There's so much more to discuss, but I want to deep dive into a few characters. Starting off with the mystery of Luthen Rael. He is so incredibly well written. Is he a hero? Is he not? Is he just a different kind of monster? The ambiguity that's left in where you want to sit morally with him is so beautiful and is what makes his character so good. We come to realize that when it comes to situations like these, things simply aren't that simple. Things aren't black or white. And while in my personal opinion, I would say that in the end, yes, Luthen is a good guy, he isn't to everyone. He makes some brutal decisions throughout these 2 seasons that I wouldn't judge anyone for saying, you know what, yes, he's fighting for the right side, but he's not a good guy. If Cassian is the hands of the revolution, Luthen is the cold, calculating brain behind it. And exactly what makes him so compelling is that the mystery of where his morality is never really resolved. We see him leading this double life, the flamboyant antiques dealer on Coruscant 1 minute and a cold-blooded strategist the next. His monologue about using the tools of the enemy to defeat them is arguably the best writing in Star Wars. He admits to burning his own humanity for sunrise he knows he'll never see. He's the ultimate proof that Andor isn't a fairy tale. It's about the terrible price of freedom. Next, I have to talk about Syril Karn. He has the most fascinating villain arc in modern Star Wars. Syril is such a unique character because he's not a high-ranking general, he's a mid-level manager with a hero complex. His arc across both seasons is a haunting look at how radicalization works on the other side. He's obsessed with order and justice, but in a way that feels deeply personal and pathological. We watch him go from a high-stakes investigator to absolute rock bottom, living with his overbearing, horrendous mother, and finally into his strange devotion to Dedra and the ISB. He's the everyman of the Empire. Someone who desperately wants to matter and is willing to become a fascist to do it. It's a chilling, brilliant performance that adds so much texture to the world of Andor. In season 1, we watch his total psychological collapse. He starts with this misplaced sense of justice on Morlana 1, only to have his life dismantled by Cassian's escape. Watching him lose his job, move back into his mother's apartment and eat cereal in silence with her while she belittles him is such a grounded, awkward and chilling look into how a person can become radicalized. He doesn't want to rule the galaxy, he just wants the order that he was promised. And his desperate obsession to find Cassian is a reminder that the Empire isn't just kept alive by emperors, it's kept alive by people like Syril who are looking for purpose in the wrong places. But the most chilling part of the Imperial machine is not stormtroopers, it's Dedra Meero. She provides the perfect foil to Syril. Where he is a desperate outsider, she's a terrifyingly competent insider. She represents what I like to call the season 1 curse in reverse. She's a character whose scale grows and grows as the seasons go on, but because her ambition is so personal, she never feels like a generic villain. Dedra is the ultimate antithesis to the bumbling Imperial trope that we see in other Star Wars shows. She's hyper-competent, ambitious, and terrifyingly observant. What makes her so effective as a villain is that in any other show, she'd be the protagonist we're rooting for. She's the underdog in a male-dominated ISB, fighting through red tape to prove her worth. But her worth is measured in how efficiently she can dismantle human lives. Watching her piece together the Star Path unit from Ferrix and hunt down Luthen is like watching a predator at work. She doesn't need the Force to be scary. She just needs a data pad and a lack of empathy. Her dynamic with Syril is the bizarre, twisted reflection of 2 people who find meaning in the authoritarianism. And it makes the stakes of Cassian's journey so much higher because he's being hunted by someone who's actually competent. Finally, I want to touch on Mon Mothma. In previous Star Wars media, I have to acknowledge that for me, all she really was this amazing woman in white who was almost like an angel to me at times. However, in Andor, it's clear that she's a woman trapped in a gilded cage. I mentioned in my Stranger Things video how frustrated I was with how they treated Joyce Byers, a woman who's supposed to be independent and go-getting and striving for the good. But Andor gives us the version of an adult leader we actually deserve. Mon Mothma's battle isn't fought with blasters, it's fought with bank accounts and dinner parties. We watch her realize that to fund the rebellion, she has to compromise everything: her marriage, her relationship with her daughter, and her own morals. It's a political tragedy that adds an adult layer and adult stakes to the story. She isn't just a leader, she's a mother who's starting to realize that the cause she's fighting for is going to cost her everything that she has. And her story arc throughout season 1 and season 2 is a beautiful one to follow, bringing us nicely into season 2, the wildfire and the art of the time jump. If season 1 was the spark, season 2 is the wildfire. We're covering 4 years leading directly into the events of Rogue One, and the show handles this with a beautiful structural choice. 3 episode arcs with a 1-year time jump in between. Now, I've seen shows fumble the time jumps before. It's not always an easy thing to do, and usually they feel like just a way to skip the boring stuff. But in Andor, the jumps are used to show the slow rot of the galaxy as we know it. Each time we check in, the Empire has tightened the noose a little bit more. We see characters that we love become more compromised, more desperate, and more exhausted as time goes on. It highlights the franchise trap I've spoken about before, where it feels like as seasons go on, things need to get bigger and we need to have bigger monsters. Andor doesn't do that. Its monsters are bureaucracy, surveillance, and the loss of personal freedom. The stakes are massive, not just because a planet might blow up, but because a character's soul might break. This is a moment where I briefly have to bring back my video that I did last time about Stranger Things Season 5 and the plot armor within that. We had the exotic matter scene where a show is telling us that there are huge stakes, but when it comes to actually delivering on those, it falls flat. Andor Season 2 is the antidote of that. When Luthen or Mon Mothma say that the Empire is closing in, we see it happening. People are disappearing. People are gone without a trace. Friends are lost. Alliances are betrayed as time goes on. There's a sense for the viewer of genuine threat because we know that by the time Rogue One comes around, half of these people aren't in that storyline, so they most likely are not going to make it. And the show doesn't use that as a reason to be nihilistic and just kill off characters, but it uses it as a reason to be realistic about what's going to happen and to at least give that sense of purpose. Now, you can't talk about Season 2 without talking about what happens on Gorman. Where Season 2 truly separates itself from any other Star Wars project is its unflinching reflection of our own world. The Empire isn't just evil and scary because they have red lightsabers. They're evil and scary because they use the same tools of oppression that we are seeing in our own world. We see this most clearly with the genocide on Gorman and the ice raids in Mina Rael. This isn't just bad guys doing bad things for the sake of a plotline moving forward. It's a direct reflection of things that we're seeing happening day to day now. The way the Empire handles the Gorman protests, turning a humanitarian crisis into a calculated massacre, and the terrifying efficiency of the raids on Mina Rael feel intentionally reminiscent of ICE raids and the weaponization of immigration status that we've seen in the US in recent years. I thought about whether to get political or not, but I really don't think you can talk about Star Wars without being political. To anyone who still has an issue with politics being a main component of Star Wars storytelling, I think you're in the wrong franchise. The show uses propaganda not as a cartoonish trope, but as a realistic tool to dehumanize the other. It shows how the Empire justifies brutality by labeling people as threats to order or illegal elements. This is a departure from how bad guys are usually presented in huge franchises like this. Even if we look at an iconic character like Darth Vader, in the end, some of his movement into the dark side is mostly driven by personal cause. It's mostly driven by his need for control over what's going to potentially happen to Padme, and while there are a lot of other factors playing into it, this is what in the end drives him to make the decisions that he's making. But if we look at someone like Dedra, while she does have her own personal stakes in this and wants the glory, she's also doing this for the love of the game. In Stranger Things, or even in other Star Wars franchises, the evil thing is usually a monster or one big bad guy. In Andor, evil is a policy. It's a raid at 4 a.m. It's a news broadcast lying about why people are doing what they're doing. By rooting the Empire's villainy in a real-world mechanics of systemic oppression and xenophobia, Andor makes the rebellion feel like a moral necessity rather than just a heroic adventure. So let's go back to the characters that we were looking at and see how their story has evolved over this second season. Coming back to Syril, who, in my opinion, perhaps has the most heartbreaking arc in this season. We see a side of Syril that Star Wars rarely shows us in bad guys. He ends up on Gorman, and for the first time in his life, he isn't trying to fit into a corporate uniform or impress an overbearing mother. He's wearing Gorman clothes, he's living among the people, he's finally found a genuine sense of community and belonging, and he thinks he's found peace. And that's when tragedy hits. Syril's forced to face the reality of the brutality of the Empire that he worshipped when he realizes what Dedra and the ISB are planning to do. He's caught in this agonizing middle ground. He's finally found a home, but the woman he's obsessed with has been sent to destroy it. The true gut punch for me was that in the moment that Syril has an opportunity to do the right thing and join the rebellion, it's too late. In the moment that Syril is potentially about to turn right, when his eyes are opening to the horrors of fascism, he's shot. It's a devastating end for a character who potentially was seconds away from maybe not pure full-on redemption, but making a good decision. However, once again, this is the reality of the situation. Things aren't simple. People don't just get redeemed through one good action. His story isn't just about a villain. It's a tragedy about how the machine you help build will eventually also crush you, even if you decide to finally stand against it. Then there's Dedra. If season 1 was about her fighting for a seat at the table, season 2 is about her using using that seed to set a galaxy on fire. We see her moving with total impunity now, and it's chilling. She's the mind behind the increased surveillance and the brutal efficiency of the Imperials' response to the growing rebellion. She isn't just a cog in the machine anymore, she's starting to turn into the machine. But what I found most fascinating is how her dynamic with Syril evolves. She recognizes his obsession, and instead of pushing it away, she learns how to weaponize it. She uses his devotion to bridge the gap between the state and the civilian, turning his personal trauma into a tool for Imperial control. She thinks she has everything under control, until she doesn't. There's one particular scene after the massacre on Gorman that really stood out to me. We see Dedra have a physical, visceral reaction to the scenes she just witnessed on Gorman, and to the horror that she just enacted. And the show leaves it brilliantly ambiguous. We don't know whether she's having this reaction because she's realizing that Syril, the one person who probably understood her best, was in that crowd of people and has most likely died, or whether it's because of the thousands of people whose deaths she's caused. Now, this is going to sound rogue, but her ending somehow reminds me of Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Both are women who defined themselves entirely by their competence, their perfection, and their loyalty to a father figure state. They both believe that fear is the only reliable way, but the moment that fear turns inward, the moment they realize they've sacrificed every human connection for a crown or promotion, they start to crack. Azula ends the series hallucinating her mother and losing her mind because she's achieved her power but lost her soul. Dedra ends Andor in a prison cell, realizing that the order she fought for has left her alone in a cold room. She realizes too late that she's destroyed the only person who ever cared for her in favor of a machine that never cared for her at all. Moving into Mon Mothma and how she evolves throughout the second season. In season 2, we see a total collapse of Mon Mothma's personal life. It's no longer just about secret bank accounts, it's about the soul of her family. We watch the final agonizing break in her relationship with her daughter during the wedding, a marriage that only happened because Mon had to sell her family's future to keep the rebellion's lights on. By the time she stands up to give her massive, soaring speech at the end, she's already lost everything that made her life hers. She's a leader, but with a hollowed out heart. But then the show does something brilliant. Now, Mon Mothma is not a stranger to violence. However, I do believe that she's experienced violence usually more from a distance. She knew Cinta assassinated Take Holmer, and she was the one who signed the checks for arms to be sent around. During her escape with Cassian, that distance completely vanishes. We see her give this incredible, soaring speech, the kind of noble cinematic moment we expect from a rebel leader. But Andor doesn't let her stay in that ivory tower. Within 8 minutes, she's forced to live on the dirty side of the rebellion. It's one thing to authorize a strike from a Senate office, it's another to be privy to the raw, unedited brutality of a firefight at close range. This is where Andor thrives. It shows that even the good guys have to get their hands dirty. And for someone like Mon, who, as far as I'm aware, has spent the majority of her life in the Senate, it's a brutal awakening. She's visibly traumatized, not because she didn't know death existed, but because the abstract cause has finally become brutally real. This is the moment I think that she also realizes that this sunrise that Luthen spoke about is going to have to be built on bodies that will partially also be laid down in her path. Now, coming to the convergence of Andor and Rogue One, season 2 bridges the gap absolutely beautifully, but heartbreakingly so. It shows us how a thief from Ferrex, who really just wanted to find his sister, becomes the man willing to lead a suicide mission on Scarif. By the time the show ends, Andor has fundamentally changed how you watch Rogue One. It's no longer just a cool Star Wars action movie, it becomes a devastating epilogue to a 24-part tragedy. When we see Cassian standing on that beach with Jyn, now knowing everything we know from this series, it hits much harder. You realize that in those final moments, he wasn't just thinking about the Death Star plans. He was likely thinking of Bix, he was thinking of the woman who stayed, the woman who suffered, and the world he hoped he had finally made better for her. And the ultimate gut punch in the story is that we as the audience know that he died protecting something he doesn't even know he has. He died not just for Bix, he died for his child. He died for a legacy that he'll never get to touch. It makes his sacrifice feel less like a military victory and more like an act of pure, selfless love, the final necessary piece of the sunrise he knew he would never see. Now, why other shows hit different? Again, I want to be clear, I'm not saying other Star Wars shows are bad. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching Ahsoka, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I was one of the few who actually enjoyed the Acolyte for what it was. And seeing legacy characters return in shows like that and having some of that fan service, it's not beneath me. I absolutely love love those moments. But there is a fundamental difference, I think, how those shows and Andor approach this universe and this franchise. Most Star Wars shows feel like they're written with a bit of a safety net. They rely on our nostalgia, using familiar faces, iconic musical cues, or the mystery of the Force to keep us engaged. I want to remind you that the Force isn't mentioned until really halfway of season 2. Where Andor thrives is that it refuses to give in to these shortcuts. It doesn't ask for your engagement because of what you remember, it earns it because of what you're feeling in the moment while you're watching it. While other shows feel like they take place in a galaxy of legends and myth, Andor takes place in a galaxy of consequence. In other series, the bad guys are often obstacles for the hero to overcome. In Andor, the bad guy is a system that feels impossible to beat. It doesn't quite hit the same because Andor isn't trying to make you feel like a kid again. It's trying to make you feel like a citizen of a galaxy worth fighting for. It trades the magic for something much more rare in blockbusters: truth. What I think is so impressive is that we technically know most of these characters aren't going to make it throughout the entire show. We know Cassian will because he's in Rogue One, but many of the others we're not sure, yet somehow that never deflates any of the tension that it builds. There were moments on the Gorman Square where I genuinely thought, how is Cassian going to get out of this? I know he technically is alive in Rogue One, but I don't see how that's going to happen here. And that to me is just the prime example of how fantastic the script writing is of this show. Now there is so much more I could talk about. I could talk about Bix, the unfairness of Lonnie's death. I could talk about Clea. I mean, the show is riddled with amazing characters, fantastic script writing, and great dialogue. At the end of the day, Andor is a miracle because it respects its audience intelligence. It understands that we don't need a cameo or a lightsaber battle to feel the force of a good story. By grounding the Empire in real-world systems of oppression like the raids on Luthen Rael or the tragedy of Gorman, and by showing us a human cost of the fight through characters like Syril, Dedra, and Mon Mothma, it elevates Star Wars into something profound. It stops being a space fantasy and starts being a survival story. When we see a show protect its characters through plot armor, we lose a sense of belonging and connection to the story. Andor proves that you can have a massive franchise and still tell a story that's intimate and profound. It shows us that a revolution isn't just won in the cockpit of an X-Wing fighter, it's won in the quiet rooms where people decide to sacrifice their comfort for truth. If you haven't seen Andor yet, please go watch it. And if you have, what did you think of it? You have to tell me in the comments which character arc most hit home for you. Was it Syril's tragedy? Was it Dedra's cold ambition? Was it Bix's storyline? Was it Nemik? And if you want to see the flip side of this, do watch my breakdown of Stranger Things Season 5, just here. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, power doesn't panic, it just prepares. I'll see you in the next dimension.